I'll start with a story and then we'll get into the word. Whenever I was in college, like many people, I changed majors like 3 or 4 times. I started school as like a computer engineering major because I saw that I can make like a lot of money right out of college, and I said, this is really easy and I can make a lot of money, so it's like I should do it. And I kept going, and then I took my first circuitry class, and I saw that eventually it's not easy, but the money is still good. And I asked this to Philip, and he's getting his master's degree in electrical engineering. Philip? PhD. And he said circuitry is actually really easy, and I realize now that I made the right choice to get out as fast as I did. So God eventually spoke to me that money won't always fulfill you, and it won't always be easy, so you're not doing the right thing. And so I said, like, okay, God, what is your will for my life? Like, what should I study? And I think for a lot of Christians, we go through this process of like, God, what is your will for my life, for marriage? Like, who's my future wife, God? If you won't tell me, just tell me like the first letter of her name, maybe. Like, I'll go in the book of Deuteronomy right here, and first letter, oh, it's X. Okay, I don't know. I don't know what that name's gonna be. And I think, I think there's this like issue where we think God's will for our life is like this secret He's keeping from us. Like, He knows everything you're gonna do. Like the Bible says, He knows everything that's ever gonna happen. He knows everything that did happen, and so He knows what you're gonna do, and He's keeping keeping it a secret from you. And the scariest thing about it is that we think that if we don't do this secret plan that He has for us, we are either not going to live a fulfilled life, we're going to miss out on like the coolest things that God has for our life. Like, what if I don't find that girl that her name starts with an X and I don't get married at all? And it's like, oh God, why are you keeping this secret? And then even if you get even worse, you think like, you get mad at God, like, God, you aren't telling me this secret will for your life. So whenever I was switching majors, I started looking in the Bible, seeing what God says about His will. If you have a Bible or a phone that has a Bible app or a phone that has internet access, let's open up our Bibles real quick. The first verse I looked at for finding out God's will was actually 1 Thessalonians 4:3. So I'll give you guys a second to find that. And if you want to cheat, you can look up here, but it's better to find it in your own Bible. Okay. So, chapter 4, verse 3. It is God's will, already getting to the answer so fast. It is God's will that you should be sanctified, that you should avoid sexual immorality. Well, that doesn't tell me what I should major in. That doesn't show me what my future's wife is, unless sanctified is her name. It really didn't answer any of the fun questions I have for God, like, should I stay in South Korea, or should I go back to the United States to my family, or should I maybe go to a different country, Vietnam maybe? It doesn't answer any of that. Okay, let's go to the next chapter. Chapter 5, you just have to press the little arrow on the bottom right. You're in chapter 5, verse 16 to 18. Rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Jesus Christ. Amen. Well, that was just telling me to do a bunch of Christian things. Like, I'm already doing those things. Like, I went to church already. Why isn't it telling me who I should marry? Where did I actually major in? Should I stay in South Korea? Should I go back to school maybe? Like, I have so many more questions now. Let's see what Paul talks a lot about God's will. Let's look in Ephesians this time. Chapter 5, verse 17 to 18. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Thank you. There we go. I'm not being foolish. I'm looking for God's will, just like I said. Do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will. Do not get drunk on wine, which leads to debauchery. Instead, be filled with the Spirit. Well, that's good, and it's Christian again, but it still doesn't answer any of the thousands of questions that I have for God. Like, so all of looking through all these things, I realized that Christians have this weird thing where we have the same word to describe many different things about God. So there's the first way we talk about God's will. It's like a really common one is it's like his will of like command. He says like this thing is gonna happen, and it does. It's like he says he's gonna send a king to save us, and then he does. He willed it to happen. So I don't think that was what I was asking for, because he doesn't promise in the Bible I'm even gonna get married actually. So that's scary. So the second one we see, and actually that's the will that he talks about in the verses I just read, was like this will that the things that God desires for us. Now the difference between like the will that he commands and the will that he desires is that even if I say no to his will of command, it still happens. Like if I say no, don't send Jesus Christ, it still happened historically. But his will desires whenever he says, live sexually pure, and I could say no or I could say yes. And that's where I can live for God's will or I can't live for God's will. Now the third one is like the most complicated one to describe what his will is. So it's like a will of like direction for like non-moral decisions. and it's like whenever you have the opportunity between two jobs that both can glorify God, you say, God, which should I choose? Or it's like, should I go to this university in this part of the city, or should I go to this university in this part of the city? Or should I date this Christian girl, or should I date a different Christian girl? And it's like all these questions that the Bible really doesn't have answers for us, but we're asking like, God, can you just reveal your will for these things? And I think usually we find in the Bible that like God never really reveals those things. And it's really, I think the scariest thing I've realized for myself was that I'm not asking these things to glorify God better. I think I usually ask them because I really don't want to be accountable for my own choices. I'm asking so I don't make the wrong choice. So if I did make the wrong choice, it was what God willed at least. So it's like, the reason I can't get a job right now and I studied my crazy major that I made up, well, it was because God willed me to choose this major. So the reason I don't have a job right now is because God willed it, maybe? And I don't think that's really biblical. Usually it's just our way of convincing ourselves we're following God, but I don't know about it. So I think the thing we need to be concentrating is this will of desire, how we can live more like God, like Jesus. And I think it's actually a lot easier for us to find answers for that, because like the whole New Testament is full of how we can be more like Jesus. Like if we had to rename the book to have a catchier title than Holy Bible, it would be How to Be More Like Jesus. and so let's see what it looks like to be more like Jesus. This will be the main scripture we'll be talking about tonight. Luke chapter 6, verse 12. I think if like Jesus had the perfect day, the day he liked the most, this is where in scripture it would be. Okay, I'll start on verse 12. One of those days, Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray. and spent the night praying to God. When morning came, he called his disciples to him and chose 12 of them, whom he also designated apostles. Simon, who he named Peter, his brother Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, Simon, who we called the Zealot, Judas, son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor. Verse 17. He went down with them and stood on a level place. A large crowd of his disciples was there, and a great number of people from all over Judea, from Jerusalem and from the coastal region around Tyre and Sidon, who had come to hear him and to be healed of their diseases. Those troubled by impure spirits were cured, and the people all tried to touch him because power was coming from him and healing them all. I think rarely I can find in the Bible where it has Jesus' itinerary for the day. Usually Jesus has to teach at some point, and it breaks up how you read the story, so you don't get the full itinerary of how he spent the day. But it tells you not even just what he did that day, but then what he did the night before. And so I think this kind of shows what day in the every life of Jesus. If he had we just got to watch him for a day, this is probably what it would look like. And it kind of shows this routine he kind of had. And I describe it as his perfect day, because he in Chi Alpha we look for we say there are 3 major parts to being a Christian, and if you're doing these 3 things, you're usually pretty okay in life. You're following the obedience of God, what he wants for your life, and you really don't need to be worried that you can do 1,000 things better. So we have this actual graphic to describe it. There we go. So we call it up, in, and out. So up would just be our relationship with, it's all about relationships. So up is our relationship with God. Very simple. God, heaven is up, I think. That's what the pictures show, is God is in the clouds with all the angels, and they're doing cloud parties. So our relationship with God is up. Then we have in, and that is our relationship with other Christians. And then the final one is out. And I'll slow down and repeat these a couple times. And out is just our relationship with non-Christians or people outside the church. And that line can get a little bit blurry whenever you're living in Korea. People who claim they're Christ followers, but they are not inside the church. So I'll say not just non-Christians, but people who are not in Christian community. So let's look at that verse again and let's see what Jesus checks off. So one of those days, Jesus went out to the mountainside to pray and spent the night praying to God. We already have up, right in the first verse. When morning came, he called his disciples to him and chose 12 of them. Oh, there we go. He's hanging out with his cell group on a Sunday after church. And then he takes roll to see who's there and who's not. So Simon, Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, Simon. They called him Zealot. He had a cool nickname even. And Judas, son of James, and Judas Iscariot. Then, verse 17. He went down with them and stood on a level place. A large crowd of his disciples was there, and a great number of people from all over Judea, from Jerusalem, and from the coastal region around Tyre and Sidon. So also meeting with people that were not in his church, not in his core group of people. So this is Jesus. This is the perfect day. He did all up, in, and out. It's perfectly in one. I think that it's all under one big subtitle, so you don't have to read that much. I think whenever I was in college, I would have these days. It was a Friday. Every Friday, my last year in college, I didn't have any I didn't have classes on Friday. Best decision of your life if you are still in school. choose one day to not have classes, because then you get a 3-day weekend every week. And so I didn't have classes on Friday, and so I still had to go to work though, but I loved work. It was a chance for me to just meet a bunch of people every day. I worked at a cafe. And after I got off work, I got to meet with my friends, my Chi Alpha like brothers and sisters, and we would do worship in like a courtyard. And it was super fun. It was super relaxed, because like if you go do like evangelism where you're meeting people, you're always like, oh no, I have to stop being shy right now. I gotta go talk to somebody. This is gonna be really awkward. But playing music, that was easy. I can close my eyes and I don't even realize that people are listening right now. and so I'll do that. And then afterwards, I would get to hang out with my friends after that, and we just hung out. We just played games or whatever, and it ended up being like I would wake up at 5 in the morning, go to sleep maybe 5 in the morning the next day. But I remember it was the most fun part of my life, because I did everything I felt like I needed to do, other than homework, I guess. But I didn't feel like that was what God was calling me. I realize now that I love that time in my life because there was really no guilt, and I was having fun doing it. So I hope I can teach you these 3 things real quick in a way that you don't just always carry guilt like, oh, I'm doing all 3, but I had 30 minutes on the subway where I could have read the Bible more, so I should have done more up. And I'm just not being the best Christian I could be. I bet if Pastor Sam was here and on the subway, he would be reading the Bible right now. Or I bet my uncle Terry, he's a good Christian, he would be reading the Bible right now. So I could be doing everything a little bit more Christian. And the reason I'm not seeing my family accept Jesus right now is because I'm not a good Christian. I'm not doing enough out to them right now. And the reason I don't know my cell group leader that much is because I didn't get coffee with him this week, and I'm sorry, Vivek, I didn't get coffee this week, but I had exams also this week, so I'm just doing everything wrong. And I think the path that you feel like a lot of guilt in is not usually the path that God doesn't teach you through guilt. That's only things your mom does and your teachers do. Your mom will always try and teach you out of guilt, and I think your teachers will as well. Jesus never does that though. He shows you his perfect way, and it's so appealing that you want to follow. So let's figure out this like, I'll change it from perfect day. Let's go to perfect week, because in Seoul, we're pretty busy all the time, so you can't always cram up in and out into every day. Like, you won't always be able to get coffee with your cell group leader. You won't always get the opportunity to do every single thing. So let's say perfect week. And you don't no legalism here. Let's just try and learn how we can follow Jesus Christ in a more approachable way. So the first one was up. And I don't think I could teach anything really like things you haven't heard before about relationship with God. Some things I notice Christians have the most trouble with, myself included. If you looked at the YouVersion Bible reading streak, you'd probably see 4 days. But 22 perfect weeks in 2019. So maybe I don't think there's 22 weeks in 2019. So being able to do consistent relationship with God is usually what everyone is the most worried about. The analogy we usually find in the Bible for how our relationship with God is characterized is that we are like the bride of Christ. And I have trouble with that analogy because I'm not married, so I don't know what that really means. But I know dating relationships at least. I remember once I met a girl at a leadership retreat at Chi Alpha. Back before I was a missionary, I was at this leadership retreat, and I was just meeting people. I meet this like really beautiful girl. Her name was Mary, and she, I met her, and because I'm really slick, I got her phone number somehow. And so after the retreat, I would message her a lot. Eventually, the conversation dies down, and you kind of run out of things to talk about. And so I knew she had a dog, and she really loved her dog. So I would Google like cute pictures of dogs, and I'd be like, oh, I just found this picture on Facebook, and I'd send it to her. And it would be to keep the conversation going because I really wanted to talk to her. I always wanted to talk to her. And if there was like a Chi Alpha event that was like, oh, it happens while you're in class, I'll be like, oh, class was canceled. I'll go. and it was like this constant thing where I wanted to be with Mary, and I think that's a lot of how we need our view of God to be more like. It's like this longing to be with Jesus. Now that's easy to say. How do we do that? God isn't a cute girl that I met at a retreat. Song of Solomon, probably the most risque part of the Bible. My great-grandmother, my mom was looking at her Bible one day and saw that she had Song of Solomon paperclipped together because she decided already in 80 years of age that she didn't need to read that anymore. It was just too risque for her. It had too many allusions that she thought were inappropriate, so she's like, okay, can't read that anymore. But it's like this story about these two like lovers, like people who want to get married, and it's like it's supposed to mirror this our relationship with God. And there's like verses where it's like this beautiful poetry of where it's like I look out into nature and I see like cliff sides, and I see your face, and I listen to like the wind, and I hear your voice. It's like I want to see your face because it's beautiful. I want to hear your voice because it's sweet, and it's like, how can we do? What the heck was Solomon doing that made it so easy for him to like write poetry about God? I guess something. I'll go back to dating. I think it's a lot like you're dating a girl and you only bring her to the movies every date, and you're like, why is this so boring? We hang out all the time. Like you don't like seeing Avengers for the 13th time? I'm trying real hard right now, but the movies are great, right? Why? And it's like our relationship with God is categorized usually by maybe one or two things. It's maybe reading the Bible inconsistently and praying whenever we want something. And we're like, why is our relationship with God so boring? It's because we're studying a textbook and we're just saying our wishes out into the air. And it's like, obviously that's boring. You're only doing one thing. So what more can we do? How can we spice up our relationship with God? One thing I find that a lot of Christians will only do when their pastor tells them to is fasting. We do fasting here at YEM. We do it. Was it Christmas? What holiday did we fast together? Easter. Easter. I might have. Everyone forgot, so no one has to feel bad. Fasting. I find that any time that my relationship with God gets really stale, reminding myself what I'm willing to give to God, it brings new life into my relationship. You could read 1,000 books on the best way to fast and like cool new ways of fasting. Like one of our sisters, Kate, she isn't here today, but I'm saying good stuff about her, so it's okay. She did a Daniel fast recently where she only ate like nuts and berries and stuff like that for like a whole month. And I'm like, how do you do that? I want to get like shake fries at Loteria and stuff. Like, and it's like, it like brings new life into your relationship with God. So you aren't just going to see Avengers again. What else can you do? You can meditate. There's a wrong view of meditation. There's a right view of meditation. The wrong view is the Buddhist way. The right way is the Christian way. That much is easy to know. Quite simply, meditation is thinking on God. And if you ever went to school, it's very easy whenever you're reading the Bible to feel like you're studying for a test. And meditation is the best way to get out of this test mindset. It's just like this relaxing, there's no rush. I don't have to finish the chapter. I don't have to keep on reading more and more. I'm not going to get quizzed on how to read it better. It's just like, God, what are you telling me right now, God? God, what? Like you're reading like Daniel or something, and you're seeing like, oh, Daniel's adjusting to living in a foreign country. Oh, I'm doing that too, God. What would you be telling me right now when I'm going through the same thing as Daniel? And I think that will help. That can breathe some new spice in your life. If you want more ideas, actually, here's some homework. Celebration of Disciplines by Richard Foster. It's literally a book that tells you just more ways of how you can talk to God. I think he has 9 different ways. But there's so much more than studying for a test through your Bible and praying to God your wishes. You can spice up your relationship with Jesus in so many different ways. I'm done talking about dating now. So we had up, and now let's go into in. If you're here at church, I think you have some idea that church is good in some capacity. If you've ever heard Pastor Yoon preach, I think even just once, you know that he does not think preaching on Sundays is the most important thing of church. I think he said that almost every single week for the past 52 weeks, and that's all I can verify. If you listen to Pastor Yoon enough, you notice he has like catchphrases of things that he really likes to say. Like church isn't just about hearing my sermon every Sunday, but it's what do we say? We are the church. You are the church. Yeah. Well, I know what I'm talking about. And so if you're coming to church just for a Sunday sermon, I can tell you it's usually really just, it's almost like a waste of tea money. Like it's like, oh, you just wasted a swipe to come over here. Pastor Yoon is great at teaching, and Pastor Sam is really good at teaching, but if we're going to be honest with ourselves, a lot of times we forget about this stuff. And it's like, if you're just here for teachings, it's like, a lot of times, unless I take notes, I might not always have this information. And so, what can we get from church that's lasting? And that's our relationships with each other. I think, and I'll specifically mention international church, because if you're here, you're at least been to an international church at least once in your life. I know a lot of people find it really exhausting coming to international church, where it's like every week it feels like I'm meeting 10 new people, and then they all leave the next week, and it's like, oh, I can't make good friends in 1 week. It just feels like exhausting. I'll tell one more story. We had a girl in our cell group. Her name was Luciana. Maybe you met her if you've been here for a while. Maybe you didn't. She was only here for about 3 weeks. She was on like vacation from Brazil. She's Brazilian, and she came here for 3 weeks. And it's like she came. She was best friends with everyone for 3 weeks, and then just disappeared off the face of the earth, and we never saw her again. But it was crazy how in those 3 weeks she became closer to every single person in our cell group, and I don't think anyone in our cell group would say, I I wish I never met Luciana because I like her so much and she just moved to the other side of the world and I never get to see her again. Most of our cell groupers like, oh, I treasured my time with Luciana, and even to this day I message her and I tell her what I'm going through because she gave me so much good wisdom while she was here. And it's like, I think we can look at this very one-sided and just see all of our best friends leaving all the time, and we're like, maybe I shouldn't invest in new people. Maybe I should just invest with people who say they're gonna be here for this amount of time. I'll say personally, I'm glad nobody from this church said, I'm only gonna be friends with Brad because he's staying here like 1 year or however long it was, because I'm not staying here for 1 year, it's 362 days. And I think it's the saddest thing to think about, God's people, all God's people simply not having enough love to love Christians. How can we love non-Christians, make disciples of all nations when we can't even love just Christians because they're leaving? Like, it's like, well, that's the saddest thing in the world to think about. So, if you're having trouble investing in new people, I strongly ask you to tell you, maybe pray to God, ask for more, for God to fill you with more love, or simply just try and make a friend. Okay, so out is the last one. I think out is the one that we usually feel the most guilty about, because most of the time we're just not doing it. and I'll say so like the picture that Jesus gives us in parables was it's like Luke. I didn't put this up here. Luke 12. The parable of the great banquet, I believe is the name. Now I'm not reading off my notes right now. Jesus describes that there's this man, this owner, and he's gonna throw like a huge party, and so he sends his servant out to say to all of the rich people in the area, like, hey, I'm having a big party, come. And all of them give all these crazy excuses why they can't come. So the owner says, like, well, I'm still throwing a party. If the rich won't come, invite like the poor, the lame, just anyone who will come. And the servant goes out, comes back, and he says, we still have a lot of food. We can still bring in more people. And so Jesus, I spoiled the ending of the parable. The owner says, okay, go to every country town and country road. Just go as far as you possibly can, and try and get somebody to come to my party, because anyone who is not invited will never taste my feast. And I think we get this idea from like really cool stories from missionaries that like, if I tell somebody about Jesus, they will instantly accept it and it'll be so easy, and when it doesn't happen, we feel like we didn't actually do what God wants us to do. Or maybe God didn't tell us to go talk to that person. But this story Jesus tells, obviously people say no to the servant. So people will say no to me telling them about Jesus. But it's like this like perfect, Jesus paints this perfect picture of love where it's like this servant keeps going out again and again, and it's like it's like the owner almost seems kind of like dense. He's like, well, no one's coming to your party, just cancel it. Like, no, just you and your servant go and eat the food. Like you'll have takeout or something. I don't know, but it's this perfect picture of love where he's like, he just wants somebody to come to his party. He wants more people to come to his party. And the perfect picture of love is not just shown by the owner, but it's shown by the servant as well. It's made perfect by them working together. Amen. And so whenever we're going out, the perfect picture of love is not people just accepting every time you say yes. It's that you are working with God to tell other people about Jesus, and you get to work alongside Him at every step of the way. And so, if you aren't gonna do it, like no one's gonna do it. I think we can usually see that in most aspects of our life. Like, if I don't tell the non-Christians in my family about Jesus, like, I can guarantee you no one loves my family more than me. So who else will tell them about Jesus other than me? Like, it's like no one in the world loves them more than me. And it's like, Pastor Sam can't go to your workplace, so he's not going to be telling them about Jesus. I'm only choosing Pastor Sam because I actually can't see Pastor Yun from this position. But Pastor Sam won't be at your workplace, so who's going to tell your co-workers about Jesus if you aren't there? It's if you're in Korea, the young generation, they've heard about Jesus, but only from, honestly, like their grandparents. And it's like this, like Jesus is like this person that only these old people would talk about, and they don't understand how the world works anymore. But you are a Christian that works alongside them, and you at least understand how the world works. Like, you don't have a flip phone anymore, so you at least know how technology works. It's this. You are the only one that really can speak to them. When I first came here to Korea, I asked our director, like what can I do in Korea? Like, how I have my degree in political science. I don't have any like actual like credentials to be a missionary. And she said that simply because you're like 23 years old, it makes it so much easier for you to teach people about Jesus. And they won't she said they won't even listen to me as much because I'm an old pastor already. You're the only one that can speak the same way as them. You are 친구 and I'm 목사님. And it's you are the only person that can actually be the servant to go out to these people. So I will never say this is easy. Following Jesus it's not really easy. I will claim it's simple. It's really simple. You don't have to know all the right answers. There's only 3 things, and if you're at least attempting these 3 things, I think it's easy. You could sleep so well, knowing that I'm doing everything that God's calling me to, really. So I have two questions really for discussion. So do you feel content with your balance of up in and out? Like, do you feel like you are attempting these? And if not, like what part needs to be more emphasized in your life? And of course, take time to pray for each other. I think that's probably usually my favorite part every week. You get to throw all your problems to somebody that you just met them, and then they pray for you. So yeah, let's just take some time right now and just share with your group just what you're struggling with in terms of up in and out, and just pray for each other.